It's Sunday night, 8 o'clock. Welcome to All Lacrosse Live. Thank you for joining us at our brand new time slot of 8 o'clock in the evening on the East Coast, earlier in Saskatchewan. Correct, Shawn?
That's correct. It's about 7 o'clock here.
There you go. With me, as always, I am Gary Groob in Toronto, but with me, as always, I have Shawn Slaght over Moose Jaw. Shawn, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Thanks, Gary.
And I have Muffler Mike Kostiuk over in Connecticut. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great.
In a little bit, we will have our Albany guy, Caden. He's going to be jumping in with us in the Wolves' Den. And, of course, we have Pat Bernard coming on a little bit later after he picks himself up off the floor after the Wings game is over, which right now is about 2 minutes into the fourth quarter. San Diego up 16-12. That was a weird twist of events in that game anyways. But NLL is back, guys. And after a couple little things here, we will be going. Eduardo is in Jacksonville.
Hey,
Eduardo.
Great to have you with us. That means that you are at home on the mend, I think. That is great news. So we have Johnny Mouradian with us, too. Hall of Famer in a number of different things. And when I read his credentials to you, you grab a seat. It'll be a while. You know, it's a long list.
It's a long list
of accreditations, and he's going to talk to us about Armenian lacrosse. So this is going to be an exciting time. But just before we get rolling, as always, just a reminder to everybody that all of our shows are streamed live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also Twitch, as well as Instagram Live. And you can remember, please, to subscribe, follow, and like, and share. You can please join some of our other shows along the network here at Streampunk Entertainment, the Pat Bernard Show, the Attacking Third, Steel Steps, soccer and football post-game shows, CFL shows. Remember, if you missed a show, no worries. You can grab all of the podcasts on our YouTube page for our show at All Across All the Time. Or if you go on to Streampunk Entertainment on YouTube, you can get Streampunk Lacrosse for any of the extra lacrosse stuff, as well as Streampunk Sports for any of the other things that are going on along the network. Alrighty. So let's quickly get ourselves over to the ALL because there were a few games going on over the weekend out west. And, of course, East starts up next Friday, or this coming Friday. So this is going to be pretty exciting. Everything's going on. But over yesterday, the Blackfish and the Grizzlies met up, and the Blackfish came away with a 12-9 victory. And the Eagles and Seaspray played the later game with the Eagles coming away with the victory over there, 17-7. Looking at the standings, the Shooting Eagles are 4-0 and just mopping up the town. 73 goals for, 34 goals against. They're just rocking it. The Seaspray are at 500, 2-2. The Grizzlies, you would figure, would be doing better. Christian Del Bianco is with them, and you figure that would be the ace up their sleeve. They're 1-3 right now, so just proves that you need some other things other than just great goaltending. And the Blackfish are also at 1-3, and coming up next week, the Shooting Eagles are going against the Grizzlies. That's gonna be interesting. The 4-0 team going against a team that should be 4-0. And the Blackfish are going against the Seaspray, which another be an interesting one. Two teams that are pretty much the same. So very, very interesting. We also have some women's games that are gone on this weekend at West. That was the Deer playing the Flying Squirrels and the Turtles playing the Bats over at Langley. And we haven't gotten any scores out of them yet, but as soon as they come up, we will have them posted on our Facebook page. Vancouver with a second half meltdown. Yes, there's a lot of those little meltdowns going on. Luckily, Toronto waited until nothing and had the meltdown right from the beginning. Well, it's somebody had to help me hold my pen, for crying out loud, to watch that. So much anticipation. And then, I tell you, for those of you who have been under a rock for the last couple of days, Ottawa took their inaugural game and thrashed the Rock 11-5. And in my eyes, they beat them in every category going, other than silly penalties. Offensively, they look great. And, to say that the glass is half empty, I say half full on Toronto because Elijah Gash looked great in that game. He did fantastic against Jeff Teat. He was on him most of the game. And, of course, Teat's going to get his chances and a couple of goals or whatever. But nothing of the normal Jeff Teat-a-thon that we would normally see. And Gash also had a couple of offensive opportunities. Didn't convert, but boy, oh boy, he certainly made a good showing for his first Rock appearance. One of the things, of course, that the Rock have is injury trouble. The injury bug has bit them hard right off the start. And, of course, Latrell Harris was just back. He didn't play the fourth quarter because he left kind of gimpy, which is not good news because T.D. Erlin was out long-term. Talon Rogers was put on the physically unable list at the beginning of the morning. And Brad Cree was put on the physically unable to perform list earlier in the week. So that's already 4 huge pieces from the defense. Offensively, Schreiber's, I don't think he's 100% yet, but he's playing. In fact, he was a game-time decision in the morning, and they put him in Atlanta because there's so many other injuries. So, yeah, injuries, lots. So right now they're going on, kids, the Kearneys of the lineup. Cameron looked good. Brian Cameron had a great game for his inaugural game with the Rock. We have clips of the game. This one is a little bit lengthy, so please, get your drinks. You'll enjoy it.
Your officials, Mark Gardonio, Brett Colomb, Ian Garrison, and score shot clock operator Dominic Hartley. We are underway with the 2024-2025 NLL season. Dalek with the shot goes wide. Matthews skips it down. Schreiber, 15 on the shot clock. Backhand flip inside. Oh, great save by Higgins, denying Corey Small on the doorstep. And we played a few games for Panther City, so getting an opening day start here and on the ball team and covering Jeff Teat. That's a lot of praise for young Elijah Gash. Backdoor cut for Teat. Oh, and what a save off the O'Connor pick. Loses his footing, and that was something Callum Jones mentioned to us in pregame. This is a new turf, and it's very slippery. And there's the first goal for the Ottawa Black Bears.
He comes across top. That's where he wants to get. He falls, but still has the wherewithal. Gets it over to Matisse, and Dunbar sees just enough space. They don't even need to have communication. They both know each other so well, even though last year was the first time they played together in the National Lacrosse League.
Sundown to Matisse, and he scores! Great look from Sundown to Matisse, cutting down the lane.
Year number 12, still getting it done all over the floor. It's a little bit of a slow change for Toronto. Matisse trots in, gets the ball.
And now here's Elijah Gash on a full half-floor breakaway. Gash all alone. Bounce shot, save Higgins.
Look at him. He's a big body. He's got the skill, just needs to hold the craft when it comes to playing inside the boards.
Feed inside, they score! Connor Kiernan on the power play.
He's number 92 in on the crease. One little fake, 2 little fakes.
Pass that Connor couldn't connect. Got to get a shot off. Dunbar inside, save Rose. Loose ball, Dunbar!
As you see, Matisse tries to get that to O'Connor. O'Connor can't get it. Picks up that loose ball. There's the initial shot, eliminating any fast break opportunities.
Yeah, they're getting off the floor very, very well, especially the near side left. He's inside. Cameron kick, save, and a beauty. Picked up there by Matisse, 10 on the shot clock. Underneath, dive shot, save Rose.
Switching to the TD place down
6 on 5. Clark behind the net. Up top, Teat. One more. Sundown, what a save by Nick Rose. Remember that save. We get another look at the Rose save.
Yeah, unbelievable feed. Great quick stick, but an even better save on the wrong side. From that far out, they're going to be good with leaving that one open.
Inside feed. Clark goal load scores.
Here comes the ball. Down low. Clark, 1 big pick. 2 big picks. Maybe a little bit of a too big of a pick, but he doesn't care. And there was definitely shades of Craig on that last shot.
Loose ball picked up by Latrell Harris. The L trade in full speed. Harris scored. Welcome back, Latrell Harris.
of Higgins. Harris, not just an outstanding.
So the Rocker on the board, 5-1, Ottawa leading. Now Toronto's really got to tighten up the defensive game. There's a save by Rose. Another nice save by Nick Rose.
That's such a difficult task when it comes to team. You can't give them space.
Brian Cameron with his first.
This one's not going to count as transition, but they push the ball. They start playing fast. Look, it's still in a change. Great fake. I think I like the call.
Here come the Black Bears on the power play. Teat to Kiernan. Scores, tiptoes to Crease.
A lot of the chemistry between these two continue. Teat's going to get the ball back from Kiernan. A little give and go. Draws the defense into the corner.
Quickly tracked down there by Jubinville. Sundown will flip it to Teat. Far side, Dunbar. Late man O'Connor beats Rose.
To play against. Well, Sundown gets the ball low. They're going to transfer it over. What it looks like it's going to go to the righties, but it's a late change.
He's going to stay and play a shift here. Teat through a screen, won't shoot it, tries to get through the middle and slipped again, but keeps his feet up and he scores! Oh, what a play by Jeff Teat! Never give up!
Showing why he is appointment television every time he touches the turf. Little toe drag. He falls again, brings that, fights through 3 checks.
For the Rock power play. Dalek on the shooter. Flip it. Small shot. Save Higgins with a little bit of flair in that one. Maybe a little 5-on-4 here. Ottawa recognize. Kiernan. Dunbar. Shot. Scores! Give him a hat trick. 7-point night for Jacob Dunbar.
Absolute howitzer for his hat trick. I know you can't win a trade just after one game.
Matisse, they're going to shut Teat off again. Behind the net, Sundown. Clark, O'Connor. One more, what a look! Oh my goodness, what a feed from O'Connor!
We really don't need to go into the fourth. It was a lot more. I'm telling you. Now, a couple of things that are great about this one. Number one is, of course, Jacob Dunbar. He had a hat trick. He had, I think, 7-8 points in the game. Connor Kiernan had a hat trick as well. 37 saves for Zach Higgins, who was elected mayor of Ottawa yesterday. Incredible. But the best story of all is Callum Jones playing for Ottawa. Now, if you guys remember the summertime, the one game that was canceled was because Callum Jones got injured in Oakville, running in the boards and hitting his head on the way down, and he had to be carted off. 911 called and carted off by stretcher, and that was it all summer for him healing. And he was playing and he made a full recovery. That to me is fantastic, and all the other stories really are sidebars. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's huge. So really happy to see him and playing well as well, and not playing with fear. So because that'll get you hurt.
One other thing I'll add, attendance was just shy of 7,000, I believe.
Not bad for a first
bad.
game.
Yeah.
So kudos to the marketing team,
everybody,
and everyone in the organization for. So hopefully it just keeps on trending upward. The wins will certainly help.
So let's move ourselves. Let's move ourselves a little forward there to the next game on Friday night, and that was Colorado and Vancouver in a game of really 2 games. The first half, which was all Vancouver, and the second half where Vancouver took an early flight home. And, they left Subban there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, Colorado came back from being down, was this 5-1, 6-1 at the half.
6-1 at the half, yeah.
Going 10-1 in the second half and winning 11-7.
Yeah, and what we say, Vancouver themselves again. It just seems like the same old story, even though we keep thinking this team's turned a corner, and they look like the same old team that just can't hold the lead. One bright point, though, I guess, is that transition game with Owen Grant. 3 transition goals. It's unbelievable. His speed is just unreal in the turnovers, but I guess we'll get to the Jackson Subak deal, I guess, in a little bit here. But
Yeah, I'm just digging out the clip now, the clips for the game. So just bear with me for a sec. But yeah, it's a, this is it's 6-1, and we're all talking about, well, is Ward done? Is Ward done? And obviously not. Obviously not.
Yeah,
What do
because
you
in
think,
that
Shawn?
first half, I was gonna say, yeah, in that first half, and even with Ward, even the Colorado defense just looked disheveled, like completely out of place in that first half.
Right.
Didn't really even give him much help, really, in that case. But then, yeah, I don't know what happened at halftime. The Pacquiao stripped some paint off the wall and got those
Right.
guys back in gear again. But
Well, we got some clips. Why don't we have a look and see exactly what went on in this game, and try and piece it together from there.
Be the first goal of the game.
But you can see that shot that Kevin Crowley took off the pipe. We're able to get a reset.
Good back check there. Nice
That was
shot.
a big
shot, and Owen Grant with the hop shot and the score.
Hard to the net.
But both goals here for Vancouver have been to the low. First one low left on Dillon. This one to the low right.
Prior to finding Walsh. Now, Malcolm trying to work his way out of a double team does find a way to do so, and they find a way to get it in front and a goal.
Play here, good loose ball in the corner. Culture still exists, despite their record, despite their success. It's still around, and they still have that core group of guys. And here's a great shot by wide open in the middle of forward. And check the replay here. Again,
And if don't allow any scoring, it'll be just about 40 seconds of penalty time left in the third quarter. There's a nice move by Ball, and he scores.
Players had so much patience there. And ultimately, it was Keegan Ball with the big wind-up and fake.
Had it dialed in, but it caught the outside instead of the inside of the pipe. Now he gets over to Malcolm. Malcolm to McLaughlin. Back to Kelly. He scores.
Great ball movement. As we see, it goes from Malcolm over to McLaughlin, and then a skip pass.
He gets out. Zed Williams gets the ball. No shot clock reset. Zed tries to dunk it, and it's going to be a goal.
Acrobatic move by Zed Williams to reach with his left hand, and
I'm not sure we're going to get assist to that one. Working in his Keegan Ball, and he gets it.
it's on 5 goal to end the first half, and you can see this. You can see this play developing, and he just
Trying to get back to the 5-goal lead, which is what they had at the half. Colorado had a little bit of a run, and now a chance to run in transition, working it around.
jumped the brakes a little bit there, and I think that fooled his defender. But
Malcolm works to the far right side. With the Kelly into Zed. Zed gets it and scores again.
so dangerous, and how he got his hands free there was Ryan Lee was getting banged on in the middle, and he came and just set that subtle pick.
John, the team's not like coming to altitude for the first game of the year. There's a wide open pass to Zed Williams.
Williams that we are so used to seeing. That is where he does the majority of his damage. It looks like just a little bit.
Colorado 1 for 3, if I remember right, on their power plays tonight. Trying to get their second goal. And giving it, there's a goal. Again, working it up this time to Ron. Ron working in. Now he finds the middle pass. Shot.
They don't have a lot of huge guys up front. Maybe Zed is it there, but
I think you bring some of that fire now over to Vancouver. So there's the shot. I don't believe that one's going to count. Colorado certainly isn't worried about it.
And there it is. Now, we did have some stupidity in this game. We had Jackson Subak going off and getting himself a couple of game misconducts, a fighting penalty, and a few other things there. Now, my question to you guys is this. I dug up an old thing here, and that is here. And this was when he was with Philadelphia playing Vancouver. And this was his little record there from January 20th, in which he got a fighting major, 3 game misconducts, and an instigator. And it hasn't been 2 years yet. And of course, good old rule number 41.4 is a repeat offender. Any player who is assessed a second match penalty, second dangerous contact of the head penalty, or combination thereof within a 2-year period shall be assessed an additional 5-game suspension. Does this count as a couple of match penalties? Altogether, I count 5 in this, let alone anything else he's done.
But you see, that's a technicality. They're not match penalties. They were game misconducts.
Right.
Now, is there a technicality there? And You look at that score sheet you just put up, Gary. It's basically a mirror image. It's this game and this game against Colorado. We had 3 game misconducts, fighting and leaving players bench.
Yeah, the leaving of players bench alone should be worthy of a good suspension.
Like, I don't see how he can't be suspended from this.
Yeah, he just lost his mind. So, I don't know. Second half meltdown is correct, Eduardo, but he had his own little meltdown. So Colorado comes away, the Zed Williams Express. And really, he's alone half the time. How do you leave him unguarded? You need to put 4 people on him, and he'll carry 4 of them.
Yep.
When
another interesting milestone too. Eli McLaughlin's now second all time in Colorado for assists, surpassing John Grant Jr. So that's
huge.
Pretty major milestone.
So that was the first of real interesting games. We've had a game, and we've had a really crazy interesting game, and that was just the first 2 games of the weekend. That leads me to our next one, and let me introduce the newest member to the All Lacrosse crew. And he is in the Wolves' Den. And let me bring on Caden Balint. Welcome, Caden. Good to have you with us.
Folks.
Hey, Caden.
Welcome.
Great to have you with us. And boy, oh boy, what a game we got you for the very first one with us. It had a little bit of everything in there, and man, it was tied after every quarter.
Yeah, it was tough. Watching the game, obviously being there, it was a great atmosphere. Personally, in the short time I've been in covering the Firewolves, that building was packed. I mean, I've been to Devils games, I've been to River Rats games, I've been there for different sporting events, and just seeing it continuously fill up is great to see. We want to continue getting every single seat in there filled out, but it's a slow build. They even Captain Colt talked about it yesterday during the press conference. It's just a continuous, the front office has done a lot of good work with building the fans up. So first of all, having the fans there, having that type of atmosphere for game 1 is great to see. Would have loved to come away with a win. The Sats getting the W there was tough on my part, but great game, both sides. I mean, something that I noticed, I even asked both Colton and Coach Clark, 9 penalties taken was very killer for Albany last night. In a game you want to win, you just can't do that, and it was key point. I mean, Zach Mann's 4 goals tonight, 4 goals last night. So,
the man's the myth, the legend. Yeah. And I'm still kicking myself that Toronto got rid of him.
Like 10, I think they said it was 10 goals the last 2 games against Albany.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty insane, eh?
He's been an Albany killer.
But I know your point, because I was in Albany for the Rock game last year, and already the crowd was starting to pick up and knowledgeable. That's another thing too, very knowledgeable. And really, I love that the MVP arena itself is a very, very homey arena. It's a big place, but it's it doesn't feel like it's a mammoth spot, and very, very comfortable. Great place to watch a game, and a lot going on.
Most definitely, and it's great to watch the sport grow. Specifically, I'm going to look at a homegrown talent, Dyson Williams. Obviously a Duke draft pick. However, his sister actually plays at University of Albany, so he's right in town. He stays in town. He's living, within the area, so it's great to have him in the community. And with him in the community, his sister at UAlbany, the sport is constantly growing, and I think last night was a key part of that. I mean, you continuously saw how loud the building got. The goal with 11 seconds left, the place went berserk for as many people that were there. So a complete standpoint from when I started, and it was a great build of people there, but they know they could fill it more. And last night was, a key example of how much they could fill it.
Right. Well, we'll have a look at the highlights, and then we'll go through a little bit more.
Having their power play. Struggled there last year. Behind the cage. Second chance opportunity. It's Walker. First goal of the new season belongs to the steady veteran Ethan Walker. Sask looking for a response to tie the game. Keenan catch, shoot, and he scores. Derek Keenan leaned and broke the 5-hole. Bounce feed, Tyson Williams making his NLL debut. Williams fires and scores. There's number 1 for the number 1 pick 2 years ago. They were a +6 in the second quarter. For an 8-10 team to have a +7 overall goal differential, Sask looking for the playoff berth this year. Mans delivers. Their average age is 27.1. For Albany, 26.2. A transition rip for Patrick Kostiuk with 665 saves a year ago. This ball goes in for Mans. And if the Firewolves handled this year like they did last year, maybe some playoff opportunities. Simmons with a blast from distance. And 2-goal games last year and 1 goal. Oh, there's a score. Austin Shanks to cut it back to 1. Key absence for the Rush tonight, Connor McClelland, an upper body injury. He's on injured reserve, not available tonight. On the move, we are tied at 5. There's Brock Haley. Is number 4 against Wagner in terms of penalties. Saskatchewan back to the power play. And they score to take their lead 4 against 3. It will be 5-on-3 in 20 seconds. Simmons scores! Tied at 6, number 2 for Simmons. Of course, the Rush prioritizing killing off some time. You mentioned this earlier. Albany committed 5 straight penalties. And the Rush scores shorthanded to take the lead. There's contact as Simmons leaned. Back to Simmons on the door. He scores! Messenger down the middle of the floor. Hits the lefty, Mans! His 4th tonight. And the lead to the Rush. Power play goals for Albany belong to Walker and Simmons. Here's Ethan Walker, kicks it, Simmons gives it up, shot, and Longboat ties the game. 8-8 at MVP Arena. Nice body control by Kurtz, had some freedom to shoot it. Kept over the timeline by Williams, but a 2-on-1 for the Rush, and they score! Jake Boudreau. No! Simmons with 15 seconds up top for Walker. Walker looking. Kurtz spins. Kurtz ties the score! And Jamison got a break from the Lacrosse gods. Man, swing it, and they score! Austin Shanks delivers, and the Rush beat the Firewolves on their open.
All righty. So let's get ourselves back. Well, guys, let's keep going with it. Austin Shanks, what a huge pickup that was.
Yeah,
Sean?
kind of add some context to that. Even during training camp, Derek Keenan was saying the reason why the Rush missed the playoffs last year was because they lost so many of those 1-goal games. And he specifically said, I went and got Austin Shanks because he's that guy who can get you that extra 1 or 2 goals.
Right.
Well, there you go. He did exactly that.
Austin Shanks, let's not forget, 2 years ago, he put up 31 goals with Halifax. So, I mean, it is a huge addition for the Sask. And for him to be there and having a guy like Levi Anderson, which I will say was sucks that we couldn't actually see him get the chance to play last night. I know they were kind of hyping it up on social media just to see him scratched from the scorers table, which was kind of tough. But it's just a guy like him. It's just going to help Levi get into this league and grow.
Yeah. The other one that really jumped out of the score sheet for me, and Gary can probably attest to it too, is Brock Haley.
Yeah.
5 points. 5 points in his NLL debut. He was a steal of a trade from Vancouver.
And
Absolutely.
It was said best that that's why you give up a 6th overall pick for a guy like that. or for
Yeah.
I think it was a 6 overall pick, if I'm not mistaken. That's why you give up that type of pick for a guy like that, because he can do exactly what he did last night, 5 points in an NLL debut. You talk about NLL debuts, Dyson Williams with his first goal as well. You know, for a game that didn't see a whole lot of separation between Albany and the Sask, I thought him, Will Johansson, John Wagner, 3 guys personally stood out to me a lot when watching the whole contest. And I mentioned Will Johansson, his first game after a really gruesome leg injury last year. First game, first goal. It's another great, kind of story for that guy.
Absolutely. The other story, I think, is Frank Scagliano in net for Saskatchewan. He looked great. Absolutely great last night.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of saw that matchup as Jameson against Giuliano, and I'll even admit it too. I thought Albany would have the edge with Jameson, but let's give credit where credit is due. Giuliano went toe to toe with him the entire game.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jameson at times, it's funny because it seems to be a regular thing. He'll play about 54 minutes or so where he just looks, at ease. But there's 5 or 6 minutes in most games, excuse me, where he just looks like he's just uncomfortable and fighting it. And sometimes that is the run that beats him. That's what happened last year a couple of times. Is the run that beats him is those couple of minutes where he just seems to look uncomfortable and 2 or 3 go in. Because Albany had a horrible time last year in 1-goal games. And, if that alleviates and they start putting those as W's, look out. Look out. I've already got them picked as my team to go all the way. So this will just cement it for me if they can get that one. What do you think, Caden?
I talked to Coach Clark before the game yesterday, actually, and we talked about Dougie Jameson. And, before the season started, every GM, solemnly announced that he was, in their opinion, the best goalie coming into the season, which, even being a fan of Albany, trying to be as completely unbiased in that case, I feel like he is. You look at, 2-3 goalies in the league, and it's him. And in my opinion, it's him and Nick Rose that always stand out to me. But
Right.
Obviously, Scagliano, if I say the name right, if I'm butchering it, I am very sorry. He played a great game last night. But like you said, Gary, that he looks very good for like 55, 56. That a good majority of the game, those 4 minutes kill him. Clark said that they feel like they have a safety net when they have him in net. And you just hope that he can continuously look solid, drop those minutes. If he's going to feel uncomfortable for 2 minutes during the entire game. Don't drop it to 4, because everybody here knows that it's a game of rushes. It's a game of inches. It can change in the flip of a coin. So you can have a lead. You can have a 3-4 goal lead. You can have a 6-goal lead. And it can change at the drop of a hat.
Just ask Vancouver.
Yeah,
Exactly my point.
Yeah, don't ask Toronto. But don't worry. Next week, Toronto, I'm sure, was embarrassed enough that, they face Albany. It's their home.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that number 6 pick that was traded for Brock Haley was scratched while Subak played last night or 2 nights ago and racked up 39 penalty minutes. So, Kurt Malosky's maybe going to have to take a look at that,
I don't think he's going to have a problem with that, because I don't think we're going to see Subak for a little while. So I think that spot just became available anyways.
Yeah. So we'll
as for the Zach
see
Mads,
Ramos Canato on the floor.
Yeah. As for Zach Mads, you got Mark Matthews out of that, Gary. So
yes, I believe you got Adam J and a scratch of last night, Levi Anderson. So I don't think he did too badly in that trade either. But oh man, 4 goals and one of each really. He had a howitzer, he had a sidearm, he had a shorthanded, and he had a knuckleball.
Yeah, that one was just weird. Yeah.
When you're good, man, luck follows you. And that was something else.
One other thing I'll add, Caden mentioned the injury Johansson suffered before making his debut. Nice to see Eric Fennell back on the floor after pretty much a 2-year absence as well.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
I didn't get a whole lot of chance to talk to Eric Fennell. I mainly spent a lot of my time talking to Wagner and Johansson yesterday after the game was over. Welcomed him to Albany. He seems excited to be here. So I'm excited to see a guy like that who was a key part for Halifax. Just have him be a big body, a big veteran presence, a big scorer. When Albany actually announced that we were signing up for a 3-year deal with the Firewolves for an additional 3 years after, I talked to Clark right after it was right after the Utica Championships, and he was very happy with the addition of Fennell to Albany because, in his words, it was a guy they looked for. Not to say anything bad about the team last year, but when they played Buffalo, they got pushed around and they got pushed around hard. If you had a body like Eric Fennell in there, even Dyson Williams, who's in there now, but it's obviously hindsight 2020. That's guys like right in there that you need to win a championship. And
Absolutely.
I think Fennell will be a big piece if we will go for a championship run this year.
Absolutely. I think you're dead on the money with that one. All righty. Well, Caden, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we will be seeing Caden week in, week out with the Wolves Den. And it is a pleasure. Welcome aboard. We're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you, boys. I'm very excited to be on. Slow start last year with the Firewolves. Not even a slow start, just my first start with them. And in a year, I'm already here. So it's just a continuously skyrocket up.
Sky's the limit. And I know you have the energy and the wherewithal to get it done. So we really are happy to have you with us and look forward to everything that we're going to be doing all season long.
I'm definitely excited to get on with it. For anyone who's not, take a look at Stream Punk. You can find all my work there. Post articles whenever we get the chance. 2 articles just went up for the game last night.
Awesome. All righty. That was Caden Valent with the Wolves Den. It's always great to have great young talent with us, and Caden is fantastic, and really, really a pleasure to have him with us.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, we have the Rochester game to go to, but we have a guest with us. The Wings Nest.
Oh no!
Oh yes. Yeah. And let's welcome Pat on the show. And
You okay?
another tale of two halves there, Pat. A tale of two halves. Boy, oh boy, did they look good out the gate, man. Holy smokes. They look terrific. Mood looked good in the first quarter. 8 goals, set a record for Philadelphia in that first quarter. Most goals ever by the Wings in the first quarter. And all of a sudden, somebody woke up Westberg and the rest of the guys, the Rob Hilliers. I think, as crazy as it sounds, taking Chris Origlieri out and putting Mike Poulin in, I think woke up the team. And from that point on, he steadied the ship in the back, and the SEALs went to work. What do you think? Tell me, Pat.
No.
Pat.
Good sound.
No sound.
No sound.
Even this night is not going well.
That sucks too. My headset sucks. My whole night just went down the drain. Okay.
Where was that made? The headset was made in San Diego, was it?
I think so. I think the Seals got it for me. This was horrible. Like I expected first quarter looked awesome for this team. They battled. It looked like a brand new team that was out there. I mean, the way that they were scoring in transition with Mitch Jones and Holden Gattoli getting a hat trick and all those things were coming to fruition, and then it just snowballed. It looked like they gave. This looked like your typical. This looked like the Avengers against Thanos, right? If you want to go X-Men route or Marvel, like they gave a good punch, and then like the San Diego Seals just like laughed at it and said, "Is that all you have?" Because guys like Ben McIntosh thumped his old team. Ben McIntosh put 4 goals against his old squad. Rob Heller got a couple in there. There's you got guys like Beneshi, 4 goals.
Yeah.
And yeah, he could score. I mean, they were just out hustling this team through 3/4 of lacrosse and on both sides of the ball. Like, okay, let me show you what a playoff team really looks like. They outplay them through everything in transition, through defense, got physical with this Wings team. They did whatever they wanted to. And then look, it cost the Wings nothing but miscommunication, passing the rock, throwing the ball around. And it really backfired on this Wings team. I mean, listen, Wings, this is going to take some time for this team to gel still. You see the growing pains that they're going to go through. Still meshing up with the Panther City team. Phil Caputo, is going to be a great addition to this team. You can see it already, but they still need a lot of work. And starting off with a playoff caliber team like that squad, it's night and day. You're not ready for that level yet.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned Ryan Benesh, and we talked about it last year when he was having such a great year with Halifax, and he comes out in his first game with San Diego and gets 5 goals and 4 assists. Now that's an exclamation point that he's happy to be where he's at. Rob Hellier, he has started his career here in Toronto, spent 10 years here, and then, been in Vegas the last couple of years. He had 3 goals and 3 assists. He had the hat trick in the second quarter. He was one of the big reasons why the game turned around. But, the Philadelphia Wings, there's a lot of bright things to take away from this as opposed to just looking at it, wow, they got beaten again. Holden Catoni had a finger injury, so he couldn't even grab a stick for all of last year, for the majority of last year. He had 4 goals tonight. That's a huge thing because they're going to need him if they're going to be doing anything. Mitch Jones, of course, is your leader at 3 goals and 5 assists. Scott Dominey had a pair of goals. Your transition game is that much better already. Phil Caputo, you talked about. And, I've known Phil for years and years and years through Brampton and through Toronto and the rest of it. And it's great to see, he had his real coming out in Panther City, and he's able to keep going in Philadelphia with a goal and assist tonight, which is fantastic. Brendan O'Neill, in his first game, he didn't look out of place. He looked a little out of place in preseason. He did not look out of place. In fact, the goal that he scored was just beautiful. And 3 helpers along the way. So he's getting the idea of the box game. Remember, he hasn't played since he was a teenager.
Right. And that's you're seeing, like you mentioned about Scott, Scott Dominey and looking really good on not like I said, he's coming up with transition goals. They were nice, but I mean him playing defense, him playing a little bit of physical defense against that Seals team looked pretty it's good, good thing for the Philadelphia Wings. So I mean they got a couple things to work on. Like I said, this is going to be part of the growing pains. Again, I can't just, I know I immediately my blood pressure goes high when I, see this team getting outplayed for 3/4. But I, just got to remember this team's going to take time to gel. And maybe it's going to be like an Eagles thing. Maybe it's going to be like a Flyers thing. Start off slow, come off hot towards the end of the season. And maybe that's what's going to have to be. I mean, you still got the Desert Dogs, so it's not going to be easy. You still got the Rush that's going to be at the end of the month, which is not going to be easy. But you can learn from those teams. You can learn from the upper echelon teams. You can learn to play against better stellar competition, and that's where I think this team comes into play with.
Right. We didn't even talk about Callum Crawford with a goal and 4 helpers, but also in net. Everybody's looking at Nick Damoud going, oh my God, look at the 18 goals, whatever, 17 goals. But really, if you take a look at it, he had 54 shots, and we put Deacon Knott in for about 9 minutes of the game, and he didn't give up any goals. So he's made a huge leap. He had a great summer playing for Brooklyn in the summer, and he is playing Senior B every game, and looked more and more outstanding every game. And that team was a juggernaut that he was on. And, winning is a learned thing. Coming out of Peterborough, he knows how to win. And, he's going to start getting able to spread his wings, so to speak, as the season goes on. You're going to see more and more of them as the year goes on, I think. And that's going to be
I was going to say I would add, the transition game. I mean, Tony Malcolm 3 assists, Liam Patton had an assist, Alex Pace had an assist, Anthony Jokum had an assist. So it's not like the transition game is necessarily flat. It may not be turning all the time into goals, but guys on the back end are getting assists. So
you put up 15. I mean, that's still a lot. I mean, any
Well, yeah,
other game, that'd probably be a win, right? But when you give up 18, it's a little bit.
Yeah,
of an
most
issue,
of the time it would be a win.
Yeah,
and we'll further that point when we get to the next game, because I got a stat that'll probably blow your guys' minds about Las Vegas. So,
all right. Well, Pat.
Well, I mean, and I definitely gotta say though, like, and another thing to point out about the Seals, I mean, that kid Chris or Orgligri, if I'm saying his name right, the goaltender, he looked really, really sharp. I mean, listen, again, he got lit up in that first quarter, but for 3 of them, he was locked in. I mean, the Philadelphia Wings were throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this guy. I mean, he was on his A game, and again, this is a good thing for the listen, it's a good thing that the Philadelphia Wings might only have to visit this team only once a year. It's going to be bad for the Rush, for Vancouver, who might have to see the Desert Dogs, might have to see this kid. This kid looks stellar between the pipes. I mean, he's a dynasty piece. Only 22 years of age and only going to get better and better for that squad. So if I'm the Steelers, that's where you could start building from defense inside out with that squad.
Orangeville product, he's a Minto Cup winner, so he knows how to win.
He showed it in the summer. He backstopped Victoria to the Mann Cup
Gary
final.
made a good point. Just kind of giving him that little sit down was just maybe just all he needed.
It's all he needed, and what the team needed to wake up too. And the team woke up as soon as they pulled him and then put him back in. Kudos to Pat Merrill for knowing when to pull him and also when to put him back in. So that's the essence of how to coach right there.
Yeah, good stuff.
We'll let you catch your breath. And, by the way, that was a great interview this morning with Adam Levy.
Definitely.
His show, and really, really great to see.
Oh, listen, there's going to be more and more Wings content coming from me, and I can't wait to get the season underway. But I hope weekends like this are just going. It's just growing pains. I'm just going to try to forget about things that happen. You know what I mean? I'm going to try to forget a certain goaltender out of Ottawa had a great game. I'm going to try to forget about that. I'm not going to try.
You mean the mayor?
I'm not going.
Oh, you mean the mayor? Yeah,
the mayor of Ottawa.
I mean,
listen.
Tendy bear.
This little fork I have my hand. I might have to place it somewhere, like an eyelid or something. Something like that. But
they call him the Tendy bear now.
He is. Listen, he's playing really well. So, guys, listen. I just want to say thanks for the time, and I will be back in 2 weeks.
Betcha. All righty. That was Pat Bernard with, of course, the Wings Nest. Great to have Pat with us. All righty. Mike, that brings us over to our last game of the weekend, and that was over in Rochester, a game I was supposed to be at, but Mother Nature had other ideas, giving Buffalo 3 feet of snow. And, of course, I have to cross Buffalo to get over to Rochester. So we didn't do that if we wanted to do today's show, because I'd be doing it still from the interstate. Rochester, in quite an exciting game. I tell you, I really enjoyed watching this game also, and it had a little bit of everything. Rochester wins 14-12.
Yeah. I was expecting a shootout, and we definitely got one. Not quite the shootout we got today, apparently, but lot of shots. Rochester had 72 shots on net. Las Vegas had 62. So both goalies saw a lot of rubber. Landon Kells with 58 saves in the losing effort for Las Vegas. Those are WLA type numbers there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Riley Hutchcraft, kind of a surprise starter for the game. Rylan Hartley, I guess, is on injured reserve for the Nighthawks.
Because Kevin Orleman was on the bench.
Was the backup.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they had released him. So they had to sign him quickly.
Yeah. So Hutchcraft made 50 saves. The big numbers here: Ryan Smith, 5 goals, 3 assists. Connor Fields, 3 goals and 7 assists for 10 points. It's the 4th time in the last 19 games that he's put up 10 or more points in a game. Ryan Lanchberry had a goal and 6 assists. Thomas McConvey had 2 and 3. For the Nighthawks, we talked about seemingly them having no face-off presence. They used Taylor Jensen primarily at the dot, and I believe he went 13 for 29.
Yep.
My numbers might be a bit off, but not a bad showing. So, we able to keep them in the game at the dot. For Las Vegas, now for the mind-blowing stat, again, 12 goals. It's the 30th straight game that Las Vegas has failed to reach 13 goals scored. It dates back to February of 2023. So, so I think this one's probably going to be a little tougher for Sean Williams and his staff to swallow, because Las Vegas was at 12 goals with probably about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And was unable to come up with another goal to kind of break this drought. Jack Hanna.
Vegas' special teams is still something that's a work in progress, because they went 4 for 7 on the power play, but they also gave up 3 power play goals. So
it is.
That's painful. That's the difference in a game.
Yeah, and the transition game, though, I would probably give a solid, A-, B+ to Shane Simpson, pair of goals. His debut with the Desert Dogs. Jack Hanna, 4 goals, 2 assists. I think he's kind of the guy on the right-hand side now for them. So,
right.
And he's clearly showing that he can be a high caliber NLL player, coming over from the field. Casey Jackson had a pair of goals and 2 assists. Kyle Killen in his Desert Dogs debut, 2 and 1. Jonathan Donville, 6 assists. Didn't find the back of the net, but that right side is going to be pretty potent with the 3 of those guys, Killen and Donville and Jack Hanna, once they can get together some chemistry. So,
right.
The other sort of interesting development that I saw was Adam Patois, their number 2 overall pick from last year, played on the defensive end. So I don't know if the plan's to just use him more in transition, or to maybe just to kind of try him out, get him used to the box game. I don't know how much box experience he has. Certainly know he's got some skill from what he did with the Maryland Whipsnakes over the summer, PLL. So that'll be maybe another interesting rookie watch for the league.
Right. Well, that'd be interesting anyways. There's a number of things that stand out with Rochester in this game as well. And really, you take a look at, of course, Connor Fields and Ryan Smith. But you go a little further into their lineup, and you see Thomas McConvey. He's certainly come into his own. Having a back end that has Chad Tutton in there and Tyler Biles. Tyler Biles actually had a couple of offensive opportunities, which was interesting because we don't usually see that.
Yep.
So he's been given the green light to get moving. Ryland Reese was starting to look comfortable again. Ethan O'Connor back there is also another big piece to things that I thought were missing last year, and that factor.
Yeah.
So I think that these are huge points in getting them forward. It'd be nice if Brandon Slade gets into the lineup. Matt Gilray also had a big game defensively and standing up for his team.
Yeah, and then Josh Medeiros too, add kind of another piece to that transition game to speed things up.
Right.
So,
absolutely, I can't say enough. And Riley Hutchcraft to come in and he made 50 saves in this game. he faced 62 shots. That's saying something. He looked like he was having a little bit of difficulty at the beginning, but boy, did he settle down. And some of those saves were just incredible. But certainly hope that Ryland Hartley is on the upside here, because we all know his history of injuries. So, and this one comes a little bit by surprise, because really we haven't heard much about anything coming out of Rochester's camp. So it'd be interesting to see. Kevin Orleman, of course, is very, very competent as a backup, and we know that Riley Hutchcraft can do the starting goalie thing. But my big thing, and what I thought at the beginning of the year, is a healthy Ryland Hartley is the extra piece that puts Rochester into the playoff picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I say Hutchcraft. I've known Hutchcraft for years and years and years. I've had him on the other show, and Ryan and I go back a long way. He is not going to lose you a game, but he is going to be steady. And when he's hot, he's hot. But when he is a little off, those are the games that slide away. So I'm hoping that if he's got to do an extended period as the starter, that he looks as good as he did yesterday, for Rochester's sake, because I like the way this team is put together. For the first time since this reincarnation of the Nighthawks have come, I am very confident in the offense is second to none. You know, I can stack that against just about anybody in the league. You know, when you're looking at Lansbury, you're looking at Knight, you're looking at McConvey, you're looking at, it goes on and on and on. Ryan Smith. It goes, deep, deep, deep. And defensively, with Tutton, Gilray, and guys like that, Biles, they're tougher than nails. And with guys like, of course, picking up Josh Medeiros, adding that on, as well as Ryland Reese healthy, and the transition game goes in. Really, you have no weak links if everybody stays healthy. And that was one of the big things that put them in the last 2 years into slides. Once the injury bug hit them and they found that they weren't that deep, that's when we started seeing the 4 and 5 game losing skids, which took them from playoff positions to looking in and trying to fight, over a couple of teams. If it's only one team that you're trying to get over, that's one thing. But if you're trying to leapfrog 2 or 3 teams, man, that's almost impossible with a few games left in the season. So that's my theory on it. What do you think, Shawn? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think you make a good point with Riley Hutchcraft, where he said he won't lose you a game, but the question mark is, can he win you a game? And by that I mean, can he steal you a game if it comes down to that? Like, if things do break down in front of him, can he be that guy who's just going to stand on his head, for lack of a better term, to win you that game, where you see some of the more upper echelon goaltenders like a Rose or a Vince, who, if things break down, they can single-handedly almost win you that game by just kind of keeping it close. Right. And Hutchcraft's probably that goalie that, when he, again, like you said, when he's on, yeah, he probably could, but when he's off, it's not likely.
Right. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't argue with that. But, I would add that Hutchcraft had kind of a little run at this last season when Hartley was out.
Yeah. So
it's not like he's new to, the potentially extended starter's role. Yeah. So and to start from the beginning of the season, that's a whole different animal versus whatever it was last season, 3-4 games in, when Hartley got injured and Hutchcraft had to take over.
Yeah.
It was only a couple of games into the season, yeah. And that was
now you're starting fresh from the beginning, and you're kind of, okay, hey, look, I know my role is to be the number one guy right now. So,
yeah, no, I see that as well.
That could be enough of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if he's comfortable he'll be very good in net for them anyways. But let's hope. And it was a good start. That helps the team confidence is pulling out that victory. And away we go. Upcoming games for next week is you have Colorado versus Las Vegas Friday night. Saturday night, we have a big slate there with Calgary heading over to Halifax. You also have Buffalo in Rochester. That's going to be a slobber knocker.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great game if Mother Nature agrees with them. My. I think Buffalo's playing football right now. Is this another snowball? They had the Bandits Mafia shoveling out the stadium again. So you get a lot of work out of their fans, boy, I tell you. Come together. Albany is in Toronto, and both teams picked up a loss in their first week out, and both are going to look to get into the win column. Look for a much different Toronto Rock team coming out. I believe, as Matt Sawyer said in his little press conference, that we weren't good in any of this. And no, we don't brush this away. That's not our style. So you know that Tuesday's practice is going to be on fundamentals because, man, the offense really, really looked off on Friday night's game. So if they do that against Albany, that'll be over in the first quarter. And, of course, that's in their new home for the year at the Paramount Fine Foods Arena in Mississauga, whilst the First Ontario Centre is under renovation in Hamilton. So we'll see how that all goes. And, of course, Saturday night, the Georgia Swarm finally get a kick at the schedule facing the San Diego Seals. That is a game that I want to PVR. That's a game I want to see because I love the Georgia Swarm team makeup. I think on paper there isn't a team that is any better than them. There's a lot of teams that are pretty parallel, but I just think that they have so much offense. They have one of the best goaltenders of this era right now in Brett Dobson. They have a strong defense. They have a great transition game, and this is going to be a huge test for both teams. San Diego, of course, we've seen that they can score, but they give up a lot of goals. Are they going to be good in a track meet? Because Georgia's a lot younger than they are. It's an interesting thing to think about. What do you guys think? What are your games of the week? Why don't I go with you, Shawn?
One thing that I'm going to find interesting, not so much as the additions, but the Calgary-Halifax game, because they're both teams that are kind of going through that rebuild year now. I'm kind of interested to see what both those teams kind of bring to the table. Has Halifax lost too many key pieces over that offseason? We've seen kind of the moves that Calgary made and what they're doing. And with Cam McLeod now in goal, is that going to make a difference? This may not be that pretty matchup like the other ones like Rochester or Buffalo, but I'm curious to see kind of what those teams are going to look like.
Right. All righty. Well, we're going to leave that right there for now. Our special guest has just arrived on the scene there. And why don't I just take a minute or 12 here just to try and put some of his credentials out here. Johnny Mouradian played on the Junior A St. Catharines team from 1970 to 73 while attending Ithaca College. He played both hockey and field lacrosse at Ithaca. He excelled at field game as a captain and all-star attack man. In 74, he was one of only 3 Canadians playing field lacrosse in the U.S. Mouradian played on the Canadian national field lacrosse team, winning the bronze in the 1974 World Championships in Melbourne, Australia, and the 78 team that won the gold medal in Manchester, England. After returning, he played major lacrosse for Brampton, hence us all getting Brampton jerseys up and around. Mike's got his on his door. Sean's got his behind it. I got mine on. He also played with Niagara and the Oshawa Blue Knights field clubs through the 1980s, winning 4 Ontario championships. Mouradian's National Lacrosse League experience as a general manager dates back to 1992 with the expansion Buffalo Bandits. In 92, the team that he built won the NLL Champions Cup. In its inaugural season under his management, Buffalo set records for winning that remain intact today, including the longest winning streak, which was 22 games, and the only team to go undefeated through the entire season in league history. That was 10-0 in 1993, winning their second championship cup and their third in 96. During his tenure as a general manager, Buffalo reached the playoffs in all 6 seasons, which was 92 through 97. From 99 to 2009, Mouradian was a partner with the Toronto Rock and vice president GM for the 99 and 2000 championship seasons. The Toronto Rock won the NLL Champions Cup in 99, 2000, 2002, 2003, and 2005. From 2003 to 2009, he spent 6 seasons in various roles as GM, head coach, GM, assistant coach, managing director, GM, and president GM of the San Jose Stealth, and served as an advisor to the Washington Stealth, winning the 2010 championship. Early in 2010, he acted as a consultant for the Philadelphia Wings to develop a new lacrosse infrastructure, including coordinating and mentoring the coaching staff. He provided guidance and input in the development of the team strategy, and later that year was named the GM of the team. After serving as GM for the Philadelphia Wings, Mouradian was named GM head coach on July 25, 2011, after former coach John Tucker stepped down. After the 2013 season, he stepped down as head coach but remained the GM. He is the only general manager to win 5 championships. At this time, allow me to introduce a good friend of mine, Johnny Mouradian. Johnny, welcome to the
Wow,
show.
thanks a lot. It's funny.
I need to get a glass of water after all that.
You forget a lot about that stuff. I mean, because it's a long time of, just doing what you do. And the next thing you know, you're on to another different and exciting project. But, really nice listening to all your conversations about the NLL. You guys really understand the game and you really have a good handle on what's going on. And that's very cool to see. You can tell that you do your homework. You can tell that you pay attention to details and you watch a lot of the games and you talk to a lot of people, which is really, really important. So kudos to all 3 of you guys for spending a lot of time on it, because it takes a lot of time. And what's really interesting, when new coaches get into the NLL that have played, and I've witnessed it, on a number of occasions, is it's a big transition to go from playing to, showing up and, watching game film and going to practice to actually spending, the amount of time that you have to spend, to be a good coach. And there's a lot of new coaches in the NLL. There's a lot of veteran guys that, you got Kurt, last year back in Vancouver. You got Eddie, who's doing a marvelous job, and the list goes on. And then you've got some new ones. Philly is pretty new right now, right? Philly's pretty new, and you've got Shawn and his group are relatively pretty new. And then you've got like Clarkie, who's a veteran, and it takes a while to get to that level.
Absolutely. Now, we brought you on because you had threw me an email that was about talking about the Armenian lacrosse.
Yeah.
Now, of course, my first question to you is,
excellent.
How did you get involved with? That's beautiful. How do you get involved with Armenian lacrosse?
Well, first of all, you have to be Armenian.
That's
right. Like, that's a prerequisite. If you're saying how do you get involved with the Haudenosaunee, well, you got to be Haudenosaunee. I'm Armenian. Last name ends in IAN, or Armenian names also end in YAN. And I was very fortunate. Lacrosse helped me do some things that I never would have thought I would ever do. And a good friend of mine, Father Suin, who came to our church in St. Catherine's, our Armenian Orthodox church, which is like the Greek Orthodox, except it's in Armenian. And it was his first placement as a pastor. And he looked me up when I was with the Bandits, and he said, wow, you're a lacrosse guy. He was a big Toronto Maple Leaf guy. grew up in Toronto, big Leafs fan. And when he came to St. Catharines, his kids started playing lacrosse, and we became pretty good friends. And 30 years ago, we went to Armenia when Armenia first came out of, like a lot of the Soviet socialist republics came out. And we stayed with a family, and it was a really tough time for the kids and the families. So, both of us being hockey and lacrosse guys, we said, hey, at some point, we'd really like to bring lacrosse, to Armenia. And we had talked about it over the years. And, Father Suin, about 10 or 11 years ago, he had some really serious health issues. And it took him a year. He had to have a heart transplant. God bless him. Right. And so he finally had his heart transplant at Tufts. And after 5.5 years, he was able to travel, and he went back to Armenia. He's been there for maybe, 6 or 7 times over, his lifespan. But he went back in 2022 once he was able to travel with his new heart. And he came back and he goes, let's do it. I'm ready. I'm healthy. I can travel. I built some nice relationships there. And so fall of 2022, we started working on it, and we raised some money. We ran some camps and clinics in 2023, and then built some nice relationships. Went back in 2024 and ran some camps and clinics, and we hired a director in Armenia, and we're working with some really good nonprofits there. Goals, which is a soccer girls of Armenian leadership sport. We've worked with COAF, Children of Armenia Fund. We've worked with IO, which means yes in Armenian, and they raised a lot of money for projects. And now here we are, ready to compete. We took a team to Greece. I don't know whether you saw that or not.
Yeah, I did. Finished second in that. Yeah, that's pretty astounding.
Yeah, we took a team to Greece and played in a friendly tournament October 19th and 20th. Now that's with diaspora players, right? Like one Canadian and 12 American high school, college, post-college, Armenian, Canadian, Armenian American lacrosse players. And it's been a really fun time. We put in our application a number of weeks ago to World Lacrosse, and last Wednesday, the World Lacrosse Development Committee met, and they reviewed our application, and they approved it unanimously. Now it goes to the board. It's probably already there. The board of World Lacrosse will approve it. Just because the development committee does all the vetting, right? So if they vet it and they send it to the board, they know that they did their due diligence. And, they did come back with questions on some things. But once the World Lacrosse Board votes in favor, we suspect that will happen, then it goes to the full members of World Lacrosse for a vote. And we should be announced at some point in the near future as the 93rd member of World Lacrosse, which is
fantastic,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'd
say
it's awesome.
Yeah.
From a dream of 30 years to things actually coming to fruition a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
to be part of World Lacrosse, that's incredible. That's a whirlwind, really.
Yeah,
It's
you
one
know
thing
what?
to have the idea. It's another thing to put it into things that go.
That's, in all honesty, that's what happens to me in lacrosse. It's always a whirlwind of something, and it just I don't know. It worked out really well, and Father Suin, God bless him. He's listen, when people call Father Suin, when Father Suin calls, people call him back, right? Like, he's Father Suin, right? You're gonna call it.
Yep.
Like I call, they'll call me back when they have time. Right. So it's a different story.
The funny thing is, though, it's your MO. You're there at the beginning of everything. You're there for the beginning of the Bandits. You're there for the beginning of the Rock. Now with Armenian Lacrosse, you're there for the beginning of that program and building it. That is your purpose, it seems, is you are the blueprint guy and the guy who's going to muck it up and get it going and get it built.
Yeah,
That's a heck of a
the good
legacy.
the good Lord works wonders, and thank heavens I have a wife who really is supportive, and all this doesn't happen, and you guys know this, unless you can raise money, right? Like you have to raise money, and our families, our friends and donors have been spectacular in supporting the programs that we've put together the last couple of years. And we've invested in a website. We've hired like I said, a director in Armenia. We have a gal that in Armenia that runs our social media. And so that doesn't happen unless you raise money and people believe in what you're doing, and investing into the future of it. It's all about social impact right now in countries like Armenia and a lot of other countries. What we will do in Armenia, or even with national teams, it's going to have a social impact on kids in Armenia that, team sports are just really getting going. Basketball's going now, girls soccer has been going for about 10 years, but it's been mostly individual sports, wrestling. And keep in mind, Armenians' national sport is chess. I'm sure you guys do that, play chess a lot in your spare time in between like quarters of NLL games, right? You sort of like get online and play chess with each other.
I hit the clock and I come back 3 days later.
Yes, exactly. But and what I think the other really cool part of it, guys, is sixes in my mind's eye is a great part of lacrosse that I think really needed to come for countries like Armenia. We couldn't begin to go to Armenia and teach face-off specialists, and go to Armenian long stick and long stick middies, and but in right now in the diaspora in Canada and the USA, we've identified 52 Canadian and Armenian heritage lacrosse players that are playing in high school, college, or post-college. And that's going to be obviously the foundation of our sixes national teams. And we've got about 16 women that are playing, which would be the nucleus of our women's sixes team. We're going to really focus on sixes, obviously.
Right.
But we would really like to take a men's team to the European field championships in July, this coming July 2025. And then, of course, we'll be waiting for the Olympic Committee to communicate to World Lacrosse how many teams will be competing, how many members, how many nations will be competing in 2028. It could be 6, could be 8, it could be 10. We really don't know that. And once World Lacrosse understands that, then what they're going to do is they're going to reach out to the membership. There's 4 geographical areas, correct? Yep. Where, the 93 nations are from. We're going to compete in the European Lacrosse Federation, which is really easy to travel from Armenia and to Armenia. So once they figure out what that looks like, then we're going to be going to tournaments and trying to get one of those spots and to see if we can make it. Right.
Now, building these teams, especially the sixes team, you've already talked about you don't have to worry about the face-off guy, which is true. It's finding a goalie to be peppered with so many shots. I find it astounding that with a net that big and a field is not so big, that this works healthily for your goalie, and for any of these guys.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we are fortunate. When we went to Greece, we have Zach Carrion, who's an 18-year-old, graduated from high school. He played. And we've got another goalie that played college. He was at Syracuse for 3 years. And he's 25 now. And we've got another goalie who is, going to be his fiance is Armenian. So we do have like 3 goalies that have experience, which is huge. Now, listen, when I was in the NLL, they used to call me a goalie snob because I always, and with Les, wherever we were, Buffalo or Toronto, we always spent a lot of time on getting goalies. And you guys were talking about goaltending earlier, right? Yeah. You win championships with goaltending, and that, whether it's hockey, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's quarterback in football. I mean, you look at that, and we've always had and prided ourselves on getting the best goalies. And why has Buffalo been successful? Why were we successful with the Bandits back in the day? Why were we successful? We had Whipper Watson, in Toronto back with the Rock, and you win those 1-goal games, 2-goal games with goaltending. That's a matter of fact, and you've got to get that. So we do have 3 goalies, which is great. Notwithstanding that, I was a hockey goalie. I wouldn't stand in that goal with no pads for crying out loud. Would you?
7 meters away,
especially in practice and in warm up, right? I mean, like, whoa. But that's a different breed. Field goalies are a different breed. And what's really interesting about it is years ago, Teddy Sawicki was the only Canadian goalie that I knew that played. He was a hockey goalie, he was a field goalie, and he was a box goalie. Now there's field and box goalies, right?
Yep.
Canadians.
Yep.
Right.
Dobson is one, right?
Yep. Dylan Ward's another.
Yeah, Dylan Ward was another. And then Sal Lacasio, who played back in the day for New York. He was a field goalie first and then played box. And, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame as a field goalie that learned box. So, yeah, goaltending is the key. No doubt about that.
Right. Now, I was talking with Randy Mearns a couple of weeks ago, and we were bringing up sixes. And, again, we were talking about net size. And he's for the 6x6 nets. I was trying to think of doing 4x4, and he brought up a point that I never thought about. Is in a 4x4 net where guys have to hone in on such a small target, these poor goalies are going to be in for target practice.
Mm-hmm.
So a 6x6 net, we may have 36 to 34 scores, but it might be more for the safety of the goalie at that, because they're trying to pick corners, not trying to pick the goalie.
Yeah. When we were in Greece, and by the way, when we were in Greece in October, that was the first time that I ever coached sixes. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot. I mean, I've watched a little bit of it, but it's just really starting to develop. And we were like 21-18 were the scores, right? But goalies were making saves, like they were making saves. But then you also had shots that were pretty much slam dunks, right? Because you're not sliding, right? You're not sliding and hitting. There's no cross checking. There's checking on the hip, and I think that I agree that the 6x6 is the way to go, but I also think that at some point it might have to be a little bit more. And I've talked to some people about this. Is they might have to add a little bit more physicality, not over physicality, like not a cross check. But, just there's got to be something that you can do, especially, if you slide, you can't hit the guy, right? Because there's no body checking. So, and I think they're going to figure that out. We've got 3 years to figure that out. The PLL is doing some sixes. The countries are doing some sixes. So I'm sure they'll, like any form of lacrosse or any sport, you're going to have a rules committee that's pretty well knowledgeable, that are going to they'll make some adjustments, which they have to. I mean, every year, you know, in box, NLL, I was on the rules committee. We made different rules and adjusted rules every year, for crying out loud. But I do like the fact that there's no face-offs. I do like the fact that when a goal is scored, you pick the ball up and you play. I do like if you miss the net, you miss the net. Like, you don't need to dive to the, you know, end line, you know, to see who gets the ball.
Right. Now, you talked about a little bit about women. I think that's probably a better thing of an even par, since nobody has really done anything with the women's program yet, and it's up and coming. As we saw in the Worlds, the women's box is just fantastic, given an opportunity. And women's sixes, there's only been a few little tournaments here and there. So more or less everybody's on the same ground getting their program started. So are you spending as much time working towards with the women's program as you are with the guys?
Yeah. We actually have a Armenian gal, Morgan Radner, who is a D2 coach at Northwood in Michigan. She's Armenian, and she's our sixes coach for women. And one of she has an Armenian gal on that team, so she's really engaged in that whole process. And we have to have equality with women. Like, I mean, we want to have a women's team, sixes, and a men's, and a U26s men and U26s women as well. One area is different with Armenia, with the women and the men guys, is, you know, if you have an Armenian passport, you have to do 2 years of military, compulsory military. So, you know, we've got to work through that, you know, on the men's side, where the women, you know, they don't. So that is going to, you know, be a little bit more of a balancing act. But to your point, yeah, we're spending some time developing the women and researching who's out there that maybe is playing field hockey, an Armenian gal that's played field hockey or basketball now, that played lacrosse, you know, when she was 12 or 13, but can still pick up a stick, right? It's like the hockey guy in Canada that played lacrosse and hockey. Then he said, okay, I'm not playing lacrosse anymore. And 5 years later, he grabs his lacrosse stick, or 2 years later, yeah, he can still play lacrosse, right? So
exactly. Exactly. Now, here comes to the word funding. You mentioned, of course, that money is what drives everything. How are you guys getting funded? Is it coming from the country itself, or are you taking donations? How do people help? But what's going on money-wise for this?
Yeah, so we were able to work with Girls of Armenian Leadership Sport in Armenia, and they provided us a portal for our summer programs the last couple of years. And the other nonprofit that helped us our first year, COAF, Children of Armenia Fund. I mean, they raise, you know, 10, 12 million a year to build schools and things in Armenia. They provided us a portal so our donors could use it, because we don't have a nonprofit yet. We're working on it right now. And then Father Suin's Church in Rhode Island, they're a nonprofit, so we were able to raise funds. So right now, we've got a committee of some dads, lacrosse Armenian dads, that are working. And so in the new year, we're probably going to have our own nonprofit. It might take 4, 5, 6 months, but in 2025, we will have our own, which is the way you have to go. And of course, you know, we want to fund as much as we can, right? Like we would really, our goal is to fund. We made a commitment to Armenia Goals, our strategic partner there, that we will raise all the money for all the programs. And then our other goal is to fund the sixes programs through fundraising. So we're not counting on the Armenian government for anything, because we're still a ways away from, you know, meeting at the high level with them and working with the Olympic Committee in Armenia. But our first step was to be recognized by World Lacrosse.
Sure.
Now that we're that, now we could. And our board has 5 members: Father Sue and myself, and then 2 women, Sarah Stites, Kenny Avakian, who is the CEO of Goals. Sarah runs IO, which is a fundraiser, and Hago Bedros. They're all in Armenia. So our board right now, out of 5, 3 are in Armenia, which is where you have to be, because you've got to be in the country to really make an impact. You really got to be in the country. And we're developing youth programs. We've got 9 coaches certified that are in their communities starting youth lacrosse, co-ed, girls and boys with a softball. And World Lacrosse has donated some goals for us to get started and some sticks and balls. But the first year we bought 300 sticks from Good Sticks in the Czech Republic. Like, we paid the sticks and brought them in. So yeah, we've had almost 1,000 kids touch a lacrosse stick and ball for a short period of time, from an hour to 2 hours to 2 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here, and I've dealt a lot with the Netherlands and watched them, and of course Neil Pallas and Wayne Collier are old friends of mine. And the biggest thing that they ran into is they had to get somebody who was on the ground in the Netherlands to be their coach, since they couldn't go back and forth all the time. Obviously, you have people there because there's no way you're going back and forth continuously to Armenia, back to the US, back to Armenia, back to Canada, and doing all that. That's just that's more time in the air than there is on the ground.
Yeah. Well, that's why we certified 9 coaches already. Like, we put together a program with World Lacrosse and developed as Armenia level 1 certification. So we spent 2 days with them. And what we did is, to build our vertical, and that's a great question, by the way, Garrett. To build our vertical, we certified all those 9 coaches as coaches and referees.
Okay.
So that when they're not coaching, when they're playing, then they're going to be able to referee. And so it's not like we're going to have, they're the referees. Oh no, we're the coaches. No, we're all referees and we're all coaches. And that's the nice part about sixes, because it's a lot easier. And you have, as a coach, you have to know the rules anyways.
Right.
I mean, you have to know the rules.
So yeah, you answered my next question, because I was going to talk to you about reffing and where you're getting your refs from. But yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Also stops a lot of arguments between refs and coaches when they have an understanding of each other.
Well, and it's totally a respect thing, right? Like, you go, because like, I'm coaching against you, and then I'm refereeing against you, and then so what are you going to argue about, right? You're not going to argue. You're going to be able to just sort it out, because you're in it together, and you're going to build the vertical. Absolutely.
And you're saying that World Lacrosse will have this vote, and you'll be the 93rd member, which is fantastic.
Yeah. We're really excited, and I think the cool part about all of this is I'm Armenian. Father Suin's Armenian. There's a lot of Armenians around that are eager to help, and that's the really important part of it, because like, we've got to hand this over to people in Armenia. Like, they're going to have to run it. Now, our national teams still, for a long time, will be heavily diaspora, just like some of the other teams. Although like Japan now, I mean, they got kids from Japan at U.S. colleges. 20 years now it's taken them, and they're good. The Netherlands is less diaspora players than they're in the Netherlands, right? Unless you're like, box is a total different animal, though, right? We all know that. Like, you've got to have someone that understands it. And I don't know whether we're ever going to play box in the near future, with the Armenian, team, but sixes and field is where we're going to be.
Right. It's also having the, a lot of countries have that issue of not many have the hockey arenas available to it. So they have to build the outside floors and things like that. So fields work just nice, and there's a lot of them. So you can
and hockey in Armenia is starting again. It's had a couple of starts. and it's starting again. But there's only one rink in Armenia.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as it picks up, I'm sure there'll be more in the docket, and then of course box can take its shape, but that's down the road some.
Yeah. Well, that's like
also
when
not putting too many tentacles in things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple. The other thing is, it's like a few years ago, I was helping the Costa Rican national box team, and like we went there to practice, and they didn't have a box, so you're practicing outside. And so some of my buddies said, "So you're coaching the Costa Rican box team? Is that like coaching the Jamaican sled team?" Right? I said, pretty much. Pretty much. Like they don't have a rink, and Jamaica doesn't have snow, right? The bobsled team. So pretty much. So to your point, yeah, like sixes is great. Like I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and look at all the different countries it can be inclusive to that would normally not be included in anything. So that's great for the game in its own right, because look at all the extra eyes.
Yeah,
that's the big thing for all of us. What we're talking about is to get another 280 countries to take a look at it.
Yeah,
and then go, wow.
Yeah, so. And you know where Armenia is geographically. So there's Turkey to the west, Georgia to the north, and the Black Sea, and Iran to the south, and Azerbaijan to the east. So Iran has a program, and so what we're really looking at in a parallel path is to be able to have, I'm going to say this as national team A, which would be diaspora players.
Right.
And then national team A, Armenia, right? That would be Armenian players, girls, men and women, girls and boys, that can compete like against Iran and some of the places that geographically they can go to without visas.
Right.
So Armenians need visas. Like we have 3 players we've identified and a coach. We've got an Armenian coach. We've got 3 players, a goalie who is a wrestler. We have a basketball player and a soccer player. And so that's how we're going to build our Armenian A team, is with those athletes, right? That we could say, okay, you're an athlete, here's a stick, just play and you're going to be okay. And then so they'll be able to compete. Like next year when we go to Greece, we hope it would be less diaspora players and more Armenian players from there, and sort of start to get them playing, because what I've learned over the years is some of the countries have really relied on diaspora and haven't developed the youth or their men's programs. Now, when we played Bulgaria, like we had more diaspora players than anybody at that tournament in Greece. So we were just naturally going to have, more talent. But Bulgaria had, except for a couple, they were all Bulgarian lacrosse players.
Right.
And Greece as well. They, that it's a friendly tournament. So, they want their native Greek players to play. The Netherlands was a little bit different. They had a combination, and that's a great program. They had 2 teams. They sent 2 teams. So they're really highly developed, and they're very good.
It took a while for them to get there. And it's interesting that you mentioned about have different athletes in different sports, because they used field hockey.
Exactly. Yeah.
The guys who did the field hockey, the athletes there, they figured they could put a lacrosse stick in them, and they already have the idea of the field, and to teach them a few things here and there, and move from that point. So that point, it works very well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we did with hockey and lacrosse, right? Like you look at the hockey and lacrosse, and they're pretty good complementary sports. So field hockey and really football in Armenia, and basketball would be very, very important right now for sixes. Like the basketball, girls and boys would be really, really important. Armenian basketball has come a long way the last couple of years. There's a gentleman by the name of Rex Kamalian, and he actually used to coach. He's from LA, and he used to coach with the Raptors back in the day. And now he's an assistant coach with the Milwaukee Bucks. And so he took over the Armenian national basketball program, and he's recruited Armenian basketball players from all over the world, because there's Armenians in France that play basketball. There's Armenians in Portugal and in Russia, all over. And he's still trying to get those guys that are in Armenia that can play at that level. But there's a really big gap. So what we want to do, and one of our lacrosse players who we've identified is Haikos is his name. He's right below the national team Armenia basketball level, right? Like he's 27, he's below that. And so they're the guys and women that we want to have an opportunity, because they go, listen, you're really good in basketball. You might not make that, basketball team, but geez, you could play on the Armenian lacrosse team, right?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Why don't I throw it over to these guys? Mike, you have any questions for John?
I guess I would ask, what's a realistic projection for the Armenian lacrosse team for, say, 5 years from now? You're looking to be maybe top 10 in Europe, something along that line.
Yeah, I think if we look at the players that we have, of those over 50 that I shared with you earlier, there's some kids, like we've got there's a freshman at Rutgers. His brother is going to go to either a D1 or a high level academic, D2 school. There's two brothers, both left-handers. And so for sixes, they're guys that we would be very interested in. They're young. And then, we've got a player that just graduated from Cornell, Ben Ablanian, good player, right? He just graduated. He went to Greece with us. And then we also have Declan Palangian. He's 25. He played at Albany, and he was on our team that went to Greece. And his brother Nick, who's 30, played at Gordon College. We have the two Aslanian brothers, Chris and Pat. Chris plays in the PLL. Pat played, pro. And so they're really good ball players. So if you look at, we've got another freshman at UNC. We've got a player at Tufts. We got another freshman at Cornell now. So, I'm looking at those types of players that we have in the diaspora on the men's side. And I think we can be competitive. Where does that end up, Mike, to your point? We're going to be able to compete, put it that way, right? And then, of course, it's going to come down to, goaltending, luck, and how many posts you hit and all that kind of stuff. But I think we've got enough talent that if we look at our top 12 players, we could compete, right? We could compete. Now, if we'll find out pretty soon once we know, we play a couple of sixes tournaments against the best teams. You have to play Japan. You have to play against the best team in the Netherlands, the top 10 teams. You got to play the Haudenosaunee. You know, you're going to be a far ways from Canada. You're going to be a far ways from the USA. But, you know, how would we match up against Israel? How would we match up against England, right? So how would we match up against the Netherlands and the Czech Republic in that perspective? And I think we can match up with the players that we have. I think we can.
Right.
I don't want to be overconfident, but I'm just looking at the schools they play and you know how they contribute to their schools. But notwithstanding that, how many of them will play, right? How many of them can take the time off of work? How many of them can? And of course, we have to raise money because we're going to say, yeah, we want you to play. And by the way, it's not going to cost you anything, right? Rather than saying, oh, we want you on our team, but you have to raise $3,000. You know, that's a different scenario. We've all been through that. I was through that with Canada for decades, where we had to raise the money. Man, we started the World Box Championships back in the, with Stan Cochran and Jimmy Calder, and we got a little money from the CLA, and then we had to raise the money, and that's why we had that standoff with the CLA a few years ago, because we just got sick and tired of having players have to raise their own money and not being able to get a nonprofit document so that it'd be tax deductible. So our goal for our Armenian Sixes teams is to say, we're going to raise enough money so you're not going to pay. And by the way, we're going to raise enough money so you have proper insurance. We're going to raise enough money so that we're going to treat you like a high level, world-class player right from the start.
Right.
And I think that might make a difference, guys. I think that might make a difference.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
John, you got any questions for John?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious too. When you're kind of first starting out, you talked about the funding and the support, especially in Armenia, where lacrosse is kind of not as popular as other sports. Did you find it kind of a hard sell right away, or were they pretty receptive to the idea in Armenia?
Yeah, well, it was really, that's a great question. The nonprofits we worked with, who are all about social impact in Armenia, thought it's very cool and exciting, right? So that excitement, if we would have went there by ourselves, not a chance, right? But Father Suin aligned us with the right nonprofits that have credibility in their communities and that have spent years building credibility in their communities. But the kids, like any sport, you watch the ones that they don't want the stick out of their hands, right? Like they're so if you got 50 kids at a camp, there's 12 that are just like they're in. And then there's the girls that are, okay, this is fun, but they're talking and they're fixing their hair and they're giggling and laughing, and that's fine. Then there's 2 or 3 girls that go, wow, but they're like good soccer players, good football players, right? So you really see it. And I think what's really cool about it is in other parts of the world, like Canada and the USA, we have lacrosse and we have field hockey and we have hockey. So there's only going to be a few kids that fall in love with a stick and a ball, right? Or a puck and a ball, or there's 35 million people in Canada, right? And how many people play lacrosse? 75,000, 80,000. Like so let's say there's 3 million people in Armenia. Like what we're going to get a percentage, but we don't know how much of that percentage it will be. But yeah, the kids that fall in love with it, like we had kids the second year, like that we're teaching them backhand passes, right? Like, and they're loving it. They're loving it because it's like, wow, I get this ball, I can throw it over, So it's really interesting to see, and it's not for everybody. And the kids that do, like, we want to let them know that if we go to a soccer organization, we say, we don't want to steal your soccer kids. We want them to be better soccer players by playing lacrosse as well, because that's really what it's like, right? You got to play 2 or 3 sports.
Right.
They play volleyball, which is a really good team sport. So this is just another option for some of these kids, and I think they're going to really like it.
Absolutely, I think so as well.
Yeah.
So what's on the docket for Johnny Mouradian upcoming? I know last week you were at the University of Florida doing some stuff with a women's program. What's upcoming for Johnny?
Yeah, so I've been working with them the last couple of years. They have a new D1 women's program, and Dr. Shelley and I have this high performance program that we started a few years ago, and we were working with Stanford University women's program. Actually, we worked with Gator at Syracuse the last couple of years, and I've been doing some stuff with some high schools. And so I got to know the assistant coach in Stanford, who is now the one of the coaches at University of South Florida. She was with Mindy McCord, the head coach up at Jacksonville, and then she took the job at Stanford. And then she came back with Mindy when Mindy went from Jacksonville to University of South Florida. So basically what I do is I just, help them with trying to look at the game a little different, and, talk about how box stuff can be, put into their field game, and help them at their prospect camps. Like they had 180 girls, for 2 days this past week. And by the way, sophomore girls from all over the place that were in Florida for a tournament that went to University of South Florida on a recruiting trip. So what I did is, in the modules that I taught, I just taught picks and screens and two-man stuff, two women stuff, two player stuff, and then tried to, teach them to look at the game a little differently and work with the coaches. It's fun. And it's not that far away. Like we're in Florida, we're south of Tampa.
Right.
So it's like no traffic. It's an hour and 10 minutes.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And they're very nice people. They're very nice people. And I really enjoy it. It's really nice. So, I can just do some fun programs, right? And enjoy it, and try and, change the way someone looks at the game a little bit. It's like the biggest thing with the program with the girls and stuff is, they'll set a pick, but instead of going through the two defensive players, they actually go around them, which then the pick is nothing. It's everything's a pick and pop rather than a pick and go between, and that's a big concept for them to understand. Like you pick, but just go between those two defenders, create doubt. If they don't switch, if someone, then you look at it, but then again, then they tend to look for the picker right away and not going, well, no, that's okay. That's a decoy pick. It didn't work. Like you don't throw the ball, like be patient, pass it, and then look for that person that hit that pick. Right. And it's really interesting. Some of them can pick it up. And when they do, they go, wow, we never looked at the game that way.
Right. Sure. Of course. That's awesome. Johnny, I want to thank you as always for taking the time with us. I love having you on, and I want you to promise that you're going to come back and keep us informed on what's going on with Armenian lacrosse, also with the women's program as well, and what you're up to.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, guys. And like I said earlier when I got on, like you guys spend a lot of time at the game, and I think that's really important. And you share your knowledge, and you've got a lot of respect out there. Believe me, people are talking that you know what you're talking about rather than just talking. So kudos to you guys. Keep up the good work, Shawn, Mike, and Gary, as always. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure as always, Johnny.
Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care. That was Johnny Mouradian, one of the founders of Armenian lacrosse as well as his long list of accolades from field and box, and now sixes as well. Some great stuff there, guys? Some just terrific ideas that are going on. And, I love what he's talking about also with the women's program there too, because we've spent so much time with Michelle Boyer and other things about the women's box, and we don't want to neglect women's field as well. And these programs are terrific. And to get a different take on, almost to that box take to a field game, which was the initial way of how Canada played field. And to bring that now into the field game, it's kind of gone full circle that this is almost new again, which is odd but terrific at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna make sure we keep in contact with Johnny and to make sure that we know what's going on, and if he needs anything that we can help with, then we're all ears and more than happy to help. All right. Just a reminder to everybody that we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Thread, as well as we're on YouTube. And please come back and check on us a couple of times a day because the news is always changing. And as always, we have our finger on the pulse of the situation. All right, we come to our final words. Shawn, any final words for you?
Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to next week. And, with being final words, just being in Saskatchewan and seeing the Rush play their first game, I'm really excited to see what this team can do after seeing that game against Albany.
Absolutely. They exceeded what I thought that they could do, and I already had high expectations for them. So they played a terrific game, and probably to the letter, with the blueprint of the way Keenan and Quinlan put it together.
Yeah.
Mike, last words to you.
Yeah, I'd say don't let the results from Friday fool you. I think this league is going to be every game is going to be difficult, and every game obviously is going to count, and there's going to be a lot of parity in the league. So I'm looking forward to. I really don't think we're going to see as many blowouts of the nature of, like, say, the Ottawa Toronto game that we saw Friday, where it was kind of not in doubt after the first quarter. Yeah.
I think honestly that there's going to be a much different Toronto team that comes out on Saturday. I think shock and embarrassment were the two words that would come to mind of the performance on Friday. And you also got a really up and coming Ottawa team, led of course by Jeff Teat. But if you start resting on him now, like you did in years past, the Riley O'Connors, the Connor Kiernans, etc., are going to kill you, let alone the Jacob Dunbars, who finally have their opportunity to shine. So, I don't think you can rest on them. I'm curious to see how Game 2 goes for Ottawa personally. But the Toronto-Albany game, I think, is going to be a nip and tuck one. It's going to be another one like the Saskatchewan-Albany game, where it comes down to the last possession.
You've got two very good teams that are pissed off.
Yeah.
And
one is kind of like a wounded animal, and they're more dangerous that way.
Yeah, and with Ottawa, they mentioned it on the broadcast. Their first 6 or 7 games is pretty brutal. They played Buffalo, they play Toronto a second time. I believe they play Albany, they play San Diego, they play Rochester. Something like that, but it's they have a brutal gauntlet to start the season.
Right. So. It's funny because I don't see a team really that's boy, thank goodness we're playing them this week, because Panther City disbanded and all these caliber players are all over the place, and all these teams, all the echelons went up. So there isn't an easy game on the schedule, which is why we sit there and we can go, I can put Rochester here, but I can put Rochester here. I can put Toronto here, but I can put Toronto here. I can, you can just kind of roll a dice or throw darts for your 8 teams that are going to be in the playoffs. And whoever gets on a run, that's why, like you said earlier, is these games are so important at the beginning, because it's not the 2 or 3 that you're going to win in March and April or May to get into the playoffs. It's the ones you could have won in November, December, that are the ones that are going to bite you in the butt.
Yeah. And any team that gets out to like 0-3, 0-4, we're going to see some serious desperation out of those teams.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
By the new year.
Yeah.
So,
and as we're starting to see, it's a young man's game. The teams like the Albanys, the teams like Rochester to a degree, definitely Saskatchewan, who can run it, gun it, and come back and defend it, are the teams that are going to have a lot of success in this league. which make me wonder about the teams like, well, San Diego looked good tonight, but again, they did give up 15 goals. Teams like Toronto, teams like Buffalo that have rested on their lineups and are staying mature, shall we say. With a little sprinkle of youth in there, but more on the mature side. How are they going to handle game number 12 through 18 and then onward? Because we've seen it in past, the teams that run out of gas because they've had to fight so hard to get into the playoffs that by the time the playoffs happen, they're on fumes. And you get a team that's already, primed and ready. And, well, they're just, they're food for them. Food or fuel. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting year. I don't think that there's a week where we're not going to sit there and go, my God, did you see that? So with that, have a great week, everybody. For Shawn Slaght and Moose Jaw, for Muffler Mike Kostiuk over in Connecticut, I'm Gary Groob in Toronto, reminding you all to keep your sticks high, keep your spirits higher, and until we see each other next week at 8 p.m., have a great week. Until then, take care.